There you go. Right. That's how you know, you know what I mean? You're taking a step down there.
Not at all. I think doing interviews like this is probably more important because you know
you don't know who's watching this.
Exactly, but I think a lot of the time, given the fact that Tomo, your podcast reaches so many people from the inner city, you know, there's probably more value in doing this interview than going up and because I was, you know, I'm not gonna lie to you, when I did the Tommy Tiernan thing, it was like, Jesus, I was so overwhelmed and loads of people watch that, but people from the inner city watch your podcast and they respect it, and I think that's a testament to what you do.
It's doing well, Dublin City FM got me on as well to talk about it. They've been listening to it, so it's doing alright. It's doing what I wanted to do. You know, I got a message last week. I posted that Google are now offering courses and stuff to people in Perth rings in from some people who've been on. So it's doing good. It's going in the right direction.
But I think that shows the value of people that are from the inner city. There's a real kind of, you know, I think kind of with kind of the impact or the kind of the occupation of Google and Facebook of the inner city. You know, you don't want to lose that unique inner city, quick-witted kind of identity that we all have. Where 100%. You know, someone will go with you know, and you go, ask me bollocks. Do you know what I mean? Like it's kind of like.
Right. Well, I'm gonna do an official intro into the episode, right? Right. So, first episode back. We're here now with Mick, who has been dodging me like the bleeding plague. I don't know how I'm after getting him on, but he's finally here.
I thought it was the Provident.
So, new name on the podcast, as you can see, it's made in Dublin, and I'm looking forward to getting started and having a chat with Mick. I've been doing to get him on. I've been telling everyone actually, I've been telling me, man, getting him on, and then had the chance then to go on to Tommy Tiernan, which is just what I've been talking about. How did that come about?
I got an email from someone from RTE, and I was just like, nah, that's a wind up. You know, like there's no way they want to listen to someone like me going on that show, because the show's got such a big
story is
following,
very powerful,
and thank you. But it was a bit surreal, and you know, there was a bit of kind of to and fro, and then I thought it was a wind up, and then I had to do like I wouldn't say an audition, but I had to go and do a pre-interview. To see how I would cope. Right. Being asked difficult questions or.
So there's a bit behind the scenes.
Yeah, there was a fair bit, and there was a lot of kind of fair play to the team. You know, the production team that, you know, invited me on and then did the whole kind of process. They were really nice and very kind of focused on my own welfare as well. And, you know,
especially when your story, like your own, is an emotional one and you're having to relive some trauma and stuff. So it is important, and it's good that they've done that. So they had that all in place. It's very
completely, yeah. Like
they don't just want you to get in and tell your story and fuck off.
No, like they were very much kind of like, how would you feel if Tommy asked you this question or if he asked you that question? And I was like, just say no. And they were like, and would you be comfortable doing that? And I was like, well, yeah, like, you know, I'd put a clear boundary. Like, if you asked me anything that I felt uncomfortable with, and he didn't really.
Really?
You know, I would have put a clear boundary in place and said, look, I'm not prepared to discuss that.
He would have respected it, you know what I mean? It's
nice guy, really nice guy, very, very.
Speak to him off camera too,
After they filmed the stuff, it was nice. He took some time to chat to me after the interview ended, and you know, there was a real kind of sense of, it was kind of very, very authentic and very genuine, and someone who kind of, you know, wants to share stories about people that we all know.
Everyone knows him as the comedian, you know, the old culture up in the stage screaming and shouting, but very different person on that. He seems really intense.
I felt like, no joke, I felt like I was going, like when I finished, I felt like it was a therapy session.
Right, yeah.
It was nice. Like, I felt better leaving.
Nice.
Than because he was able to hold the silence. He was able to kind of and not a lot of it's very different from podcasts, but like when you're doing like the TV interviews and stuff like that, and I've only done like one, so like I'm not an expert. but I watch other TV shows. You know, you look at Tuberty, Graham Norton, even, you know, Pat Kenny and all those lads, and Jonathan Ross. They're always asking questions a mile a minute. I think what's unique about Tommy Tiernan and the program he does, he holds the silence. He allows the person being interviewed to but also allows the conversation to grow, and it's even when it's uncomfortable.
I noticed that, and it's, do you know who it reminded me of when I was watching your interview? And I said, my ma actually picked it up. She said, he kind of stops talking and stares from it. And I said, that's obviously a technique that he does to make you speak more and open up a little bit more. I don't know if that's what his goal is, but Louis Theroux does it in documentaries.
Absolutely,
and he just stares.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's something, but at the same time, it's active listening. As you said, if someone's constantly thinking of the next question to ask them, then they're not really listening to what the other person's saying.
And you hit the nail on the head there. It's active listening, but I do think that's part of his personality.
Yeah.
Because I think when you see him on the stage and he's a mile a minute, like he's just drinking about 20 cans of Red Bull, and he's like, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, what am I going to do now?
Did you do that?
Shut your fucking mouth!
Did you do the impression, bro?
No, I didn't. But
get him on the stage.
Like it's safe to say my acting days are numbered. But when you see him do that, you know that's kind of. I think when I don't know, like I could be talking absolutely shite, but I think the Tommy Tiernan that interviewed me was a fella that was genuinely interested in learning about me and understanding my story. And then even when the interview finished, and it still sticks with me.
Yeah.
And he said to me, "There's a goodness in you."
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to break down crying. I'm not gonna lie to you, because I've never heard anyone describe me like that before.
That's nice to hear. I'm sure. Yeah.
And I was just like, fuck, I was just.
Well, it's a similar reason as to why I have you on and why I've been chasing you down like a blade madman. So I've asked you a few times now, but then I got to the point where I just said, look, you done that, and I enjoyed watching that, and I said that must be very emotional. You must be coming down and off. Like there must be all sorts of roller coaster of emotions going on after that. Yeah. So I just said, look, the podcast can wait if you ever want to meet for a coffee or whatever, So, but now we actually were here, and I want to know the man behind the stories, the man behind the job title, the man behind Tommy Tiernan's show. Yeah. Where'd you come from, Mick? Where are you from?
Grew up in the inner city, originally the North Avenue, would have hung around Crumlin. Right. That's where all the family are from.
Yeah.
And would have went to different schools for creative reasons.
Right.
I wanted to be a lead singer, and the head teacher wasn't having that.
Right.
No, I'm joking. But I just wasn't the best in school.
Right. When you say the best, do you mean academically? Do you mean behaviour?
Probably behaviour management issues, just messing more so, not turning up, doing what I wanted to do. Yeah. Not taking personal responsibility for myself. Yeah. And then that's gone out to schools in Crumlin, Inchicore, Bleeding, Ballyferma. The school of Ballyferma actually was the only place I ended up actually getting a qualification. Yeah. I was always messing in all the schools in Crumlin and around there.
If you were living in the north, did you move out of the North Avenue?
Eventually, yeah. My mum got a transfer up to Balliol.
Up to Balliol, so you were in Dublin all your life?
Yeah, born and bred, no, never left Dublin. Well, I did leave Dublin eventually when I was about 18, 19. Right. Moved to the UK, but before that, Balliol, would have played GAA for Crumlin, Liffey Gales. Would have played football as a kid, soccer, for Lord Celtic and the mighty Crumlin Rovers, which is basically it was like a team of lads that weren't good enough to play for the adult team in the area. It was like the Renford rejects of Crumlin. Yeah. So it was we set up our own football team. When I say we, I was invited to go in. They didn't go, Mick, you can play up front. No, Mick, you're fat, you go and go.
Yeah. I was the same, Mick. I was the same.
But yeah, no.
Childhood wise, how would you describe your childhood?
It was chaotic, yeah. The
friends and stuff.
I had friends, but I grew up in a house that wasn't your typical 2.4 family. You know what I mean? It was very much. It was interesting. I think I'll be honest with you, it probably wouldn't be fair to comment on my family any further. Okay. And the reason why is because, I miss them and I love them. And I think, and because they're not here to defend themselves either, it's probably best to kind of...
Yeah, and then in terms of out in the streets of Crumlin and the North Avenue and Balliol, what was an average day like for, let's say, 10-year-old Mick or whatever, pre-teen Mick? What was that like? Because when you said you're getting thrown in goal there, it reminds me of myself a little bit, and we have a bit of a resemblance. I might ask me own a few questions after this podcast. Where was here a few years ago? You know what I mean? Probably mad. I hope I don't have to have that conversation.
Well, he could have been my father, but my mother was a very good runner. So like,
well, there you go. So so I mean, what would that have been like growing up around there?
Like growing up in the inner city is kind of, you know, at the time, like, you know, the 80s right up until the mid 90s and stuff, and then, you know, it wasn't easy, you know. I think, you know, yourself, you know, like, you know, you're growing up in abject poverty, you know, your mum and dad are doing what they can to survive. You know, my ma worked in as a cook, I think, as a cook in the hospital, you know, cooking and, you know, whatever. My dad, he did a couple of things. Yeah. It probably wouldn't be appropriate to comment on those things for this podcast.
I think we all
but I remember like being like butter vouchers were very much a staple in the house when I was growing up. I used to be mortified going to the shops, and your ma would be like, hold them, and you get a big book of butter vouchers. Like, it was basically looked like a checkbook that's split in half. Yeah. And with the months, you know, April, May, June, July. You got 2 butter vouchers a month. I think they were worth 50p, and there was a fella in the shop he would give you like 30p cash for like a voucher. You know what I mean? He cashed them in full, and everybody, oh yeah,
a lot of money back there.
Yeah, it was yeah. You know, I think it was a failed kind of social kind of food program that didn't really work. I think I don't really know much about it. I never read into why butter vouchers existed, but I just knew that, you know, if you were using butter vouchers or if you were accessing that particular service, you were broke. Yeah. Like, you were on your arse.
And did you know you were broke when you were younger, or was it a year?
Yeah, no, we did. Like, you know, my mum used to do stuff as a child. Yeah, like growing up the flats. I went to school in St. Teresa's. Did become a Holy Communion in St. Teresa's and stuff like that. So I was there for a while, you know, and. You know, like the flats were like, I loved living in the flats. There was a real sense of community with the flats. Definitely, it was deadly, you know what I mean? Like,
especially years ago.
Stop. Like, it was great. And then, I was just, like, I remember, like, just getting, like, you know, your dinner would be a cheese sandwich. Do you know what I mean? Like, seriously, like, you know,
cheese,
genuinely.
What type of cheese now are we talking?
It was like some fucking really cheap shit onion cheese. I don't remember them.
No, we don't, man.
They were like,
they give a few years on me, man. Anyway, look, the thing is just, look, I don't hasn't got any more about
No, you can, you can do one.
But look, the thing is, well, anyone who hasn't heard your story and we're in the limelight at the minute, and how the great work that you're doing to promote awareness around multiple things at the moment, actually, and for anyone who hasn't learned, I mean, where does it? I guess it starts with what age were you when you signed up for the St. John's Ambulance?
I was 12, yeah. Like, so my granddad, he also lived in the North Avenue. Right. And I remember, like, you know, there were days where I'd be spending, like, with the granddad, doing like a loop of all the pubs, you know, the Stork, Lowe's, you know what I mean? Like occasionally, the Board Flanagan. I'd be like, can I have a red lemonade, please? And can I get a Mars bar and a packet of crisps? Like, do you know what I mean? I'd be like, be very much like that, and then like,
to keep you happy.
Completely, and absolutely, and they'd be there, like my granddad, Paul, and like there's a fella that used to hang around, but he used to they were best mates pretty much. They were like hand in glove. Christy McCann, brilliant carpenter, and like they were just buddies, you know. And I'd be there sometimes with them. And then my granddad was the caretaker at the St. Andrew's Resource Centre in Rialto, opposite Dolman's Barn, the flats, like. And you know, I used to be always in the barn, in the flats. Like there was a fella there called Noel Kenny, who he you know, he's a pastor in a church there, you know, found Jesus and all that jazz. Like whatever you believe in, the bloke does amazing work for the area.
But that's the thing,
you know, like set up a U club there, and I used to be always going into the U club and having the crack and messing, and the fella there like John Hoyland and Terry Munnelly and all that. Terry used to be in the Foreign Legion. Terry was hard as nails. Like even now, like Terry's probably what, like 50 nearly, and you think I could take him now probably. He'd knock your bollocks in like what, you know. But these like I would have always been around that area, you know, and that's where the family were all from as well. And my granddad was the caretaker, and the Johns Almans were meeting in St Andrews Community Centre.
So they used that for a meeting point.
That was their divisional base basically. So the Johns Almans is like divided into divisions. So Old Kilmainham, Glenageary, Cabinteely, Fox Rock.
And just a little bit of background on John's Ambulance, St John's Ambulance. It's a voluntary.
It's a paramilitary organisation that was created to provide first aid to the community and in times of emergency to the state. So the John's Ambulance, I think even during the war, even during 1916, they were on the streets providing first aid to both sides. So, you know, I was kind of, I was just sitting there, and these lads were there with their ambulances and the blue lights and the uniform. Like, Jesus, deadly.
Cool.
And my granddad's there.
Attracting to a 12-year-old.
Massively, yeah. Especially when you haven't got an identity or a direction in life. And my granddad's there, and he's like, "Do you want to do that?" I was like, "Maybe, yeah." He goes, "Go on then," and he introduced me to the fella that ran it. For obvious reasons we can't name him, but he was the head of that particular unit, and he was responsible for providing first aid for the John's Ambulance. He was the senior officer over Lansdowne Road and the RDS and other.
What was the standard of like training and stuff back then?
Yeah, it was good. Like, you know, it was proper. Like, you know, these lads were professionals. Like, they weren't idiots. You know, a lot of the people that were in the John's Ambulance were doctors, medics. There were no paramedics at the time in Ireland. There were EMTs, just about, I think, and then nurses and stuff like that. You know, so.
Was there no age limit that you could volunteer or you could put your name down? I mean,
I think 12 you can join as a cadet, which is like the kids members, and then
that's what you did.
And then that's what I did. And then when you get to about 17, 18, I think you become an ambulance member, which is seniors.
Right. Okay.
So that's the adult members.
Okay.
And I joined and I thought, Jesus, this is deadly, you know. And I initially I fucking loved it.
Right.
Purely because like you got free access to Lansdowne Road.
The matches and stuff,
every match. Rugby and football. I didn't give a fuck about rugby back then. You know, I'm mad into the rugby now, but like back then I was always football, Ireland's playing.
That's
love it.
Where you grew up.
Yeah, completely. Absolutely.
It's the same,
And I rocked up, and you wouldn't even have to show a badge or you wore the uniform. And you'd walk right in. The stewards would just let you in.
Right. So you were 12. What year is this?
Oh, stop. Early 90s.
Yeah. Early 90s, yeah. Okay, so it's.
I was born 83, so 7. Yeah.
95.
Yeah, give or take.
Give or take 95. So
earlier, yeah.
Not too long ago. Like when you think about the time.
28 years, is it? Huh?
No.
My maths is shite.
You lost me. Right, anyway, the point being is I just want to know how far we're going back with the story. So 12 years of age.
Yeah, as a kid. I'm 48 now, like, so.
Yeah. And like, so back then the matches and stuff were, and the ambulance gear and everything else, the technology and stuff was grown, and Ireland was grown with it, I suppose, so it wasn't going back to the bleeding 70s.
Yeah, we're not talking like,
it's not ancient times.
We're not talking like, Catholic truck kind of.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, we're not talking kind of like the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. We're talking like the early 90s. Because I remember I did my leavers there in 90. Oh, sorry, not my leavers. My juniors there in 96. So that was around 15.
Right. Yeah.
So 93, 92, I think maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
But anyway, long and short of it, I remember being in there and I loved it, and I loved learning the first aid stuff, and I had pride in wearing the uniform. I loved the uniform actually. I
would say it's probably one of the first things that you found yourself enjoying as a kid, and you felt like you had some sort of purpose or something. How did it feel for you? Like, I mean, you said you didn't get along great in school, so I assume you didn't really like going to school.
I didn't like going to school.
You enjoyed this.
No, loved it. gave me a sense of.
What do you think that is?
It gave me a purpose.
Right. Yeah.
It gave me kind of a sense or an indication of kind of servitude, and I mean not in a kind of like you know, kind of working as a kind of, you know, a servant in a country manner. I mean, kind of more of the aspect of being or making a difference in the community that I'm serving. If that makes sense. Kind of doing good.
Felt like you were doing something.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Completely.
Right. And any of your friends around get involved, or was it just yourself?
Just myself. Yeah.
And then, so you had the football matches, the good stuff, and then unfortunately for you, you had some not so good experiences with it.
Yeah, like unbeknownst to myself at the time when I was a kid, there was the head of the unit that I was involved in was grooming me and using first aid as a tool to groom and sexually abuse me, and he would do stuff like you know, he would try and groom me in a way to kind of, so he'd always kind of bring in first aid or a life-saving technique or some way you could monitor somebody's pulse rate, because you know, if you're a first aider, you're first on the scene, you have to record the information for the ambulance crew that are going to come up, and so how do you do an accurate pulse record? You know, how do you record a pulse more accurately? And this guy was like, oh well, the best way to record the pulse accurately is your femoral artery. Now the femoral artery is between the crease of your groin and your appendages. Right. You know, your testicles and your balls.
Yeah. And is there a strong pulse there?
There is a strong pulse there, yeah, like it is, but like, but any pulse site will give you the same reading.
Wrist, neck,
and everywhere. Yeah, you know, and he knew what he was doing. He was sexualizing the training. He was and he was trying to normalize that approach, and over a period of time, that's how it kind of escalated. And I didn't have it. I was oblivious. I thought I was, you know, saving lives. I thought I was making or becoming more.
How long were you in it before all this started?
I was probably a few months, if that. Yeah.
And was he head of the training, all the training? So
all of it.
There was no one else to train you?
No,
so
he was the.
He decided where it was.
He was above reproach.
Right.
He was above reproach. Genuinely, like I remember, like when I was a kid, he's torn up to the house uninvited, just torn up to the gaff outside my house. Blue lights flashing, sirens blaring. I mean, mad thought I was gonna be a fucking doctor. Like, go on out there now and hang out with him.
Yeah. She didn't know.
My mom was oblivious. Do you know what I mean? Bless her.
Yeah, well, this is the thing with most of the cases like this, and people, they look back on it and they kind of can blame themselves, but it's no one's responsible for this other than these animals, you know what I mean? These predators that are out there, and they know just well what they're doing. You know, that should have been a safe place for you as a child, as a 12-year-old, going out there trying to learn, trying to advance in your skills, trying to do some good in the community, and then things that you shouldn't be introduced to at such an early age that you shouldn't even know about, and you didn't know about, were being used against you, and your naivety was, and your youth was being used against you by a man for his own sexual gratification, and it's fucking disgusting. It actually boils me blood. But who is liable for the fact that you had so much alone time with him? I mean, in the organisation, is it just because he was so high up he called the shots?
Yeah, pretty much.
Nobody asked any questions?
It was like basically it was an open secret. You know, like I later transpired kind of, you know, when I was a kid and being left alone. And the older I got, the more I knew this was wrong. But I was terrified to kind of go, leave me alone. Yeah. And then when he ultimately raped me as a kid, you know, I remember dropping me back home to my mum. My mum was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "Nothing." I went upstairs and then I came back down. "You've only pseudo cream," because I was in a heap. I was bleeding. You know, I was in a bad way, and eventually, you know, and it was something I ignored for a long time. I had to eventually get operations and stuff to remove infections and cut away bits of the area that was like dead skin, you know, and dead tissue. And I remember like going out to my mum going, "Have you any pseudo cream?" And she said, "What are you in that for?" And I was like, "Fuck you." I took it out of my mum and I was like, Jesus. Do you know what I mean? I felt so bad about doing that. But at the time, looking back now, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but at the time I didn't know what other way to communicate it. Yeah. And then I was washing cars in Crumlin with my mate Darren O'Brien, and we used to kill each other. Proper used to get in the boxing matches and everything. Because we worked in the forecourts. We were basically forecourt attendants, but we gave ourselves like fancy job titles. Fuel injection technicians.
One of those, yeah.
There's
a lot of that nowadays, isn't
washing cars, basically, you know what I mean? And like pumping up the wheels on the other one's cars and maybe doing a bit of a dipstick test on the fucking oil. All that shit. But I remember breaking down to me mate Darren one night in his gaff and I says, oh, this is what happened to me. Darren goes, we'll go to the cops.
What age were you?
Oh, I was about maybe 16.
16?
16, 17, if that.
And what motivated you or triggered you to
he was my he was like he was my best mate, Darren was like me. Yeah, one of my best mates.
So you felt comfortable enough talking
yeah, like you knew. I knew quite a lot about him.
Some people who go through what you went through, they don't speak for many years.
Yeah.
And my mother I had on a podcast before, she didn't speak for fucking years, and the reason being is because she blamed herself. And she called herself a slut, and she called herself a tramp and everything else. Yeah. Because she genuinely believed it was her fault. And where you as a young man, that's a kind of a different perspective altogether, because in society, women are tarnished as these things, sluts and fucking everything else. But men. But
that's toxic masculinity that exists. And men to kind of reinforce that point completely. Yeah, and I don't think, you know, any person, male or female, if they are sexually assaulted, they weren't asking for it. Yeah. You know, you can't justify, well, she was wearing a short skirt or she was wearing a low-cut top. She wanted it. No. She did want it. No. She did want it. You know, and I think a lot of the time that comes down to kind of how, you know, unfortunately, how a lot of young men are being raised.
Yeah, well,
because that kind of perpetuates the cycle, and then then it doesn't change. And I think a lot of the time, I think personally, that stuff, and I think the only way young men now can kind of learn from the mistakes that they make when they say stuff like that, or people in general, is for people around them to call them out and go, listen, that's not appropriate. I'm your mate. You need to understand that what you said there is not on. And I think that's the best. Like, I don't know what the best way is to challenge that, but I think that could be a way forward to maybe address that. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I agree with you 100%. Like, I mean, but maybe point was when I was getting to. Sorry for cutting off you.
No, go on. Sorry.
My point was for you as a 16-year-old boy, what do you think? And for other men, I hear men that go to the graves with these type of things. So, as a man, how was it for you, or a young teenager? Yeah. How was it for you to come out and say these things to your friend, nonetheless?
See, I trusted Darren. Do you know what I mean? Like, he was a mate, and I you know, it wasn't a kind of a long-winded conversation. I just said, look, will you come with me to the station because something's going to happen to me and all that. And then he was like, yeah. And you know, I did kind of go into a little bit. Yeah, I can imagine. But I didn't kind of go into the nitty-gritty of what happened to me. And then I remember going to Sundrive Garda Station in Crumlin, and the copper was, we just got ran from the station.
Just fucked yourself?
Yeah, didn't want to know.
Is that because you were in a city teenagers and, what was that?
I think there was a part of that, yeah. I think there was a bit of part. Like, I'm a big advocate for the guards now because they are changing. Yeah. They are changing, they're a lot more professional. Like, you can chat to them now, like, you know, back in the day, you know, if you went up and said hello, you got a dig in the head. Now it's like, they are professional.
Well, I think it's like anything, Mick. I think there's good people and there's pricks, and that's everywhere. You know what completely. I mean? There's some pricks in the uniform, there's some great people in the uniform, you know.
But I'd like to think that the great people outweigh the pricks. That,
yeah, well, you know, for me, maybe you're a little bit more optimistic than I am.
But like, you know, I'm only going on the fact that I know quite a lot of them. And
look, I have nothing.
I'm not trying to be biased around.
I haven't a bad word to say about guys now at the minute, but like, I mean, I've had some bad experiences with them, and then I've had some experiences with some of them that are great.
I remember getting hidings off them as a kid. You know what I mean?
But that you can't paint them all with the one brush. You know what I mean? That's just that one copper or one or two coppers. You know. So anyway, you went there. They fucking told us basically, laughed us out of the shop, didn't take you serious. How did that feel?
Oh, it was shit. I went home crying.
You find you must
I say I went home, I was homeless at that stage, so like I was sleeping rough in the streets, you know, I was you know.
You were homeless at 16?
I was homeless before that, yeah, I was homeless, yeah, like I was on the streets at a young age. Like I remember Rose Rooney, who runs the extension, well she used to run the extension, it's an under 18 series that Focus Ireland have up in Christchurch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was unreal, like, you know what I mean? Like Rose like really helped me navigate homeless services.
How did that happen?
Because of what was happening to me. There was a breakdown in the family home.
Right.
You know, probably more to do with me and my behaviour.
Right.
If I'm being honest.
Angry?
Yeah, I was angry. Wasn't really getting supported by the family. You know, I wasn't in any way. You know, I just didn't feel a part of the family.
Felt isolated.
Pretty much, yeah.
That was to do with obviously what you've been going through. And
pretty much, yeah.
The confusion of all that as well.
Absolutely, and then I ended up on the streets as you know, late teens, and then well earlier than that, and then sleeping rough in the back of schools and ringing up the homeless free phone number 1-800-724-724, and you know staying in like I remember staying in the old there was a hostel on Charleville Street called the Santa Maria. Fuck me.
Sounds glamorous.
Fucking hell.
Santa Maria.
Santa Maria, and I tell you what, like, you'd walk in, right, and there'd be a stacks of like fucking slice pans. There'd be a big block of butter, catering block, whatever it was, and then there was like bits of fucking ham, like, but like it was like it probably wasn't ham, it was probably fucking dolphin or something like, and then there was like bits of cheese, and you go in, you'd make your
sandwich. Everyone mauling the
everyone, yeah, they can, like, you know what, you're homeless, you know, you'll have whatever you can get, man. I remember eating out bins, man, I was that hungry, do you know what I mean? And like, yeah, and then you'd go around there and you'd walk in, the fella there, what's your name? What's your PBS number? No, you know it all by heart, you know what I mean? Like,
it's just routine then, yeah.
Go down there, you can have a sandwich if you want, and a bit of soup, and it was like a cup of soup, so it wasn't like it was like the old kind of...
And you're only a kid now.
Yeah, man, I was like, young, remember
so it was your choice then, you just left the home, or
no, it was fucked out, yeah, it was kicked out, yeah.
So you were causing too much trouble, do you think?
I think it was causing too much trouble, I think they just didn't know how to handle me.
Right.
I think, you know, I was quite emotional, and I was you know...
Just mood swings and
pretty
tantrums and stuff. And
yeah, slamming doors. I wouldn't say tantrums, more slamming doors, more me just not really being...
Not knowing how to deal with this fucking... This trauma, these emotions,
and then they didn't know how to deal with the whole thing either, about kind of...
There's not a lot
what
of
happened to me
around
no,
it.
There wasn't. Even, yeah, exactly. And like, I remember, like, you know, like, sadly my dad passed away in August, just gone. And I remember going to meet my dad in the Black Forge, up in Crumlin there. Yeah. And he always sat there at the bar drinking on his own and crying his eyes out because the brother passed away a couple of years ago, heroin overdose. He was homeless as well. Yeah, the younger one, yeah. And I got a letter from Tusla. And they turned around and said, look, we did the investigation.
Just come
Got a letter from Tusla, and they were doing that. They said, look, we did the investigation and this is the crack. You know, we've the allegations against your perpetrator are founded. You know, this did happen, and these are the support start available to you if you need any.
When was this?
Last year.
So only last year.
2020.
You got your recognition.
Yeah.
And someone actually.
Over 20 years later after. Over nearly 23 years later.
23 years. It
nearly,
for someone to say, we believe you.
Yeah.
What did that feel like?
Yeah, I broke down crying, but the only other thing I was going up and fucking stapling that bit of paper in my dad's head and going, look there, fuck. Like, there was a bit of...
Yeah, okay.
And then I went up to the pub and I shit myself. I was like, oh my god. Like, you just prefer to be a kid, don't you? Because you still have this perception of your dad. And I towered over him, baby. Yeah, okay. Like, my dad was only like fucking 5 foot nothing. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, well, not 5 foot nothing, he's about 5'8", maybe 5'6". I walked up to him at the bar and I just read that. And he goes, what's that? I was like, fucking read it. Like, I was angry. Like,
yeah.
And he broke down.
He did?
Yeah, broke down crying.
First time you seen him do that, or?
We've never seen my dad cry properly. Even at the, like, even when the brother died, even when his mum died and stuff, he wouldn't have. But yeah, broke down crying, held me hand, kissed me hand, kissed me face. I'm so sorry, like, and that's all he said. I'm really, really sorry. Do you want a pint? And I was like, yeah. And we sat there, and we had pints, and we met up every week, up until like the pandemic kicked in. I would have went over to the flat and everything where he lived, and
oh man, I'm getting chills now. I'm glad you got to make that sort of connection.
And
you know?
like, he even I'll show you a picture actually. It's class. He's going around the back force telling the lads that I was a doctor or trained to be a doctor.
Yeah.
And all these alphas. Hey, what do you think that is? Having a clue.
What do you think that is? Yeah.
Oh, stop. Where is it? Hang on 1 second.
Save your money on the points and go see your GP.
What
do you think that is?
Where are we? Hang on, I'm trying to find
Oh,
the alphas picture. But basically, the picture I'm going to show you is me dad coming down to Trinity College.
Yeah.
And coming to see if I was actually studying in Trinity, because he's like, you don't know, fucking, you could be telling me on.
Yeah.
Where is it? Look, I'll show you after, but like, it's...
I believe you, I'll trust you, I'll see you afterwards.
Oh, sanity, but that was an amazing moment for me, because like, not only was there kind of a reconciliation and both of us made amends, and there was a real kind of, it was cathartic, and there was a real kind of healing in that. I got my dad back.
Yeah. That's nice.
Like, he'd be holding my hand, and I'm fucking nearly, you know, like, I'm not far off being 40.
Yeah.
And my dad's like, and even when he got drunk, he'd get emotional and be like, you know, I'm really sorry about all that.
It's sad that.
And I'd be like, and I was like, Dad, you know what? Don't be worrying about that. Like, it's cool. What I care about is now. Because we can't change. Doesn't matter what happens in life. We can't change the past. Yeah, massively. Yeah, massively. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But it was a big.
As a father myself now, recently, like, I can imagine it. From a father's perspective, I can imagine the last thing you want is your son to get hurt. You know.
Yeah. And to be fair, like, I remember being like a kid and getting bullied, and my dad was going around the school trying to bat it.
Yeah. That's one thing you can do.
But my dad would be like threatening other dads, and be like, if he hits him, I'm gonna hit you.
That's the standard.
Like, it was proper.
That's how it goes.
Like, my alpha was a proper, like, he was from Coolock originally.
Yeah.
Proper street fighter, like, he had like the old swallows on his hands, and like, he was a real, you know, he could fight and all. Like, back in the day, he was a proper.
Yeah. I mean,
he was nice.
It sounds like we're all cut from the same cloth. My own outlet, and like, listening to you, I can find a lot of similarities, you know, in the family stories. And it's just that moment there, you're saying that he actually broke down. He said sorry. I'd say for years that, like, his way of coping with that was probably, he obviously went into some sort of denial about it. He didn't want to accept what happened to you. Do you think?
Yeah, that's true. But I remember when I broke down, I had a breakdown in London, and I hadn't spoken to him in about 10 years.
How did you get to London? Sorry.
I got a job working with the homeless in London. So I was working.
From being homeless.
Working with the homeless in Dublin. Peter
Dublin.
McFreddy gave me a job working in the old Whitworth Road project there, opposite of Joy. So it was like a supported housing project for lads either coming out of prison or lads that were kind of experiencing homelessness and were able to kind of live in semi-independent living.
Okay.
And then I got a job working over in London. Through Howard Russell, who was the assistant director for homeless services for the Salvation Army in the UK and Ireland. But he was the guy that got me off the streets in Dublin.
Right.
So, like, he was, you know, he's probably been the most consistent person in my life for the last 20, 22 years. Like, I know, like, this bloke, you know, when he gave me the job in London and I had a breakdown and ended up on that bridge, he talked me down off that bridge.
So hold on, let's go back there.
Sorry.
So wait a bit, you were in London and when you say breakdown, just a mental breakdown.
And my dad came over.
You were suicidal, why?
Yeah, I ended up in the hospital in London and my dad came over. Couldn't believe it.
Couldn't believe it?
Couldn't believe it, yeah, because I was like completely, like I was undiagnosed, I was, you know, eventually got diagnosed with bipolar and PTSD because of the trauma experienced as a child. But yeah, my dad came over. Like he came over to see if I was alright and if I needed that.
Yeah, so...
And that says a lot, you know what I mean? Like, you know, even though we didn't have, even back then, you know, in 2009, we didn't have the best.
Yeah, well,
and
that was the recession as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's it, bro. I mean, it shows that he cared. You know what I mean? I'm sure that. And did you stay in London then after that?
I lived in London for 17 years, yeah.
What do you think triggered that mental breakdown?
The trauma. I was getting flashbacks.
How were you coping?
Now?
No, then. How were you coping?
Not very well. Not very well.
Did you drink?
Yeah.
Did you take drugs?
No.
Just gargle?
Gargle.
A lot of gargle? Weekends? Every day?
Weekends mainly, yeah. I'd binge drink at the weekends. So Monday to Friday I was working in homeless services or drug outreach or whatever.
And how were you when you drank?
Emotional.
Binge drinking.
Oh,
would it come out then?
I'd never get angry, I was just crying. Bawling my eyes out.
Anyone pick up on it?
No.
No one ever turned it on?
No one said anything, you know, they were just like, oh Jesus.
You're starting again?
Yeah. Leave me alone.
And at this point, how many people like knew your story? How like?
Not many.
How like, so when did you go?
Less than 5.
When did it go public?
Only a couple of years ago.
Only a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
When the Tuskler thing.
No, like I think it went public initially when I did a podcast in 2012.
Really?
13.
Jesus, that's a bleeding. Podcast was only starting then, would he?
You know Gerald Regan?
I'm not sure.
It's he runs a podcast called An Irishman Abroad.
Right. I've heard of that one.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I was just coming out of kind of my periods in hospital and stuff like that, and you know I was in and out of hospital, and then I kind of found a bit of stability, and I thought, you know, I'm going to set up a mental health charity.
Right. Over in England?
Yeah, called State of Mind.
Right. How did that go?
Well, really well. And then this guy Jared Regan was doing these podcasts, and I listened to them and stuff, and he had like people like Aidan Gillen and you know Brian O'Driscoll and you know like really Chris O'Dowd and like superstars. And I sent them a message down any chance I could sponsor an episode. I run a charity in the UK called State of Mind Rugby Union. It exists to improve the quality of life of their families.
Centered around rugby, the charity. Yeah.
Well, it was centered around rugby, but the community as well.
Yeah.
You know, just to improve the quality of life of rugby players, the families in the community. And then he wrote back and goes, "Yeah, I'll get back to you or whatever." And then he goes, "You should be on the show," because he googled me and he obviously saw the articles about me kind of having the breakdown in London and shutting down the transport network and kind of just being in a very bad way, and that was probably the first time I openly spoke.
So there's articles about the suicide attempt.
All over the
an attempt.
Yeah, suicide attempt. Yeah, like it was all over the national press in England. Yeah, like Transport for London wanted to take me to court for £24,000 loss of earnings because I shut down the transport network for 4 hours.
Fucking show you the sort of the consideration for someone who's in a fucking vulnerable position.
Yeah. That
like he's at the costing us money. Who gives a fuck if he wants to kill himself? You know what I mean? We want that fucking. We want to sue this prick. What do you think that is? Like, I mean, it's just for me. That's just. We were talking earlier about how things need to be pulled up on. You asked me something there. And for me, there's the cycle of what we mentioned about young men being taught bad or like wrong ways to treat women, let's say, or to view women or whatever. But for me, it's not just that one thing. It's values as a whole. We're all taught these values as a whole, where it's like money, fame, fucking women if you're a man, or materials and financial wealth and big homes, and it's like we're chasing this fucking thing where it's like this is what's important, but it's not important. You know what I mean? And these sort of corporate bastards or whoever these were who went after to sue you, where's their empathy? Where's their sympathy?
It wasn't there. No, there was none. And like I remember kind of being brought in front of the like what is like they call it the district courts.
Right.
And then the judge in the district court said, "Oh, this case is too serious for me to deal with." So they sent it to the Crown Court. So I was looking at like a big sentence if I was convicted.
Like jail time?
Yeah, proper jail time. Yeah.
For trying to kill yourself?
Yeah, because they were doing me for what was it, trespassing and loss of earnings and all this stuff, and then it ended up the weirdest thing was which I thought was like I just couldn't believe it. I remember like being brought to the cells. I was held over the weekend. Like, you know what I mean? And then brought to court in the back of a prison van. Like, proper, like, in this little tiny van, handcuffed up, like, couldn't move. The van, like, literally was like, my knees were touching the wall. It was a little plastic seat.
That's fucking shocking.
It was literally, like, you know...
To me, that's shocking. Like, that is shocking.
And I remember going to, it was Stratford Magistrates Court, actually. Not district, magistrates, they call it. Stratford Magistrates Court. And I went in there. And I had no clue what to do or where to go or what to say. I remember being downstairs in the cells and they bring you up like the steps. Yeah. And there's me like and they were like, how do you plead? And I was like, not guilty.
What was the charges?
Fucking there was loads. Like there was I think it was like 2 or 3, trespass and loss of earnings and something else. And
hold on, we need this.
It was the force.
Why you had it scrambled here?
It was the force.
You wanted the fucking. You were in such a bad position where you literally thought to yourself, and I've been.
It was one of the first cases of its kind in England, in the UK. Like the Daily Mail wrote about it, the Independent wrote about it, the BBC. You know,
what was their stance on it?
They were all kind of sympathetic to me because they were actually kind of asking mental health professionals what's the crack, and then you had like the government suicide czar at the time come out and say, well, this is quite strange that this person's being
very fucking strange,
but this is what was happening. And then I remember like kind of in the magistrates court, which is the equivalent of our district court here, they were like, how do you plead? I was like, not guilty. And then I went grand. Then I was going to Crown Court, and Crown Court is.
So they weren't letting up.
No, they so what they were hoping. So the solicitor told me what they were hoping for was that I would plead, and I would either get some jail time or a suspended sentence, and they could recoup their their losses.
A criminal record.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
For Jesus, that's mental.
But the solicitor I had was amazing, Tina. Like she was unbelievable. Like she was like, no, we're gonna get you the help you need. We're gonna send you to the psychiatrist.
Anyone with an ounce of decency would say, right,
we're gonna write.
Poor fella is in a bad state there. Let's see if we can get him some help. Not let's see if we can fucking get him sent to prison. Yeah. Hell, I don't see like. Jesus, that's mental.
Like if
what was that like for you?
It was mad. Like it was all over the news.
You had gotten out of hospital, I'm assuming, at this time.
So no, I was still in hospital. And I remember getting a phone call from the British Transport Police officer who said, oh look, we need to talk and let us know when you're getting discharged and we'll chat more. And I was like, grand. So I was in hospital for about maybe 4 weeks after the bridge incident, and as I got discharged I was walking out of the front entrance of the hospital. I was tackled to the ground by members of the police service.
Jesus, mate.
Swear to God. And I was taken to Charing Cross police station, I think, or it was the British Transport Police station in Tottenham Court Road, I think. And I was held there, and that's when I ended up going to the courts then. And they proper charged me for it.
That's mental. That's mental.
But thankfully, I'm happily report that all charges were dropped eventually. Right. But that was only off the back of a very, very public media kind of scrutiny. You know, like it was like how I was treated. Yeah.
They were being, let's be honest about it. I mean, like Jesus Christ. So that's Jesus. So when did you come? Did that trigger you at all to come home?
No, I had nothing to go home to. Like I'll be honest with you. Like,
so what made you come home?
I found Ireland quite difficult to be around, or the country to be.
Too many bad memories.
Way too many bad memories. I had some really good friends. You know, one of my best mates in Crumlin was Robbie Joyce. His brother's Keith Joyce. You know, so like, you know, we would have drank with Robbie in the Four Roads. We all would have played rugby, or not rugby, football for Crumlin Rovers. Well, Robbie didn't play football, he just sat there and drank. But, you know, Stephen Joyce, Robbie's brother, would have played football. I was the goalkeeper and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, like, I had really good mates and stuff, but I had nothing to come home to because I didn't want to be homeless again. So I stayed in London.
Do you feel like you were running from something in England?
Massively, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
When did the penny drop with that?
I think the penny dropped when I was in therapy. You know, when I was when I was exploring everything, yeah. And then I was like, I need to do something here.
And when you come home, was it coming home to face it? Or was it coming home to, you just had enough in England?
No, I came home because I couldn't get a place in any of the colleges or universities in England.
Right.
So I ended up doing the Trinity Access course.
Right.
And I was working in the NHS. And I had
after the homelessness?
After the homelessness stuff in England,
yeah.
Well, I was a mental health peer support worker,
right.
Working in a psychiatric unit, using my lived experiences to encourage patients to engage with mental health treatment.
Right.
Yeah, really good job. And then on top of that, I was working with the Royal College of Psychiatrists in London as a national advisor for the Mental Health Safety Improvement Programme. So going around with the Mental Health Safety Improvement team, visiting different trusts, which is like health boards.
Like we're jumping boys so much.
Yeah.
Like, so you went from this 12-year-old boy who went through fucking hell under the hands of a dirty scumbag is the only way I could put it. Ended up on the streets due to trauma and emotions, not being able to deal with it. Ended up homeless. Ended up working with homeless. Ended up moving to England to do the same thing. Setting up a charity. Having a mental breakdown. Getting sued for having getting suicidal thoughts and attempting suicide. Getting sued for that. Like, I mean, and then all of a sudden, then you're working as a national advisor in
Royal College of Psychiatrists.
How do you get the fucking there, man? That's some bleeding leap, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's but it's incredible.
Come here, listen, I still pinch myself every day that I did that job and still do that job sometimes. You know, for me, I was working in a hospital in Belfast.
Cause sorry to go across you, but the thing is, that's like it's just. I'm saying it is overwhelming that you've landed there because that could have easily went down another road. You know what I mean?
Oh, completely. I could be dead. I could be on drugs. I could be still homeless. You know? I could be in long-term psychiatric care.
Why are you not?
Honestly, because I'm from the inner city.
You think you have that grit, that resilience?
Do you know what? Every person from the inner city I've ever met in my entire life has got resilience. Doesn't matter what we come up against. Doesn't matter what we go through. We get over it, and we go through it. And it might take us fucking years, but I tell you what, it doesn't matter where we start, it's where we finish that counts.
Love it. That's a good answer. Yeah, love it.
Don't steal that quote.
Cut that out. Love it. Yeah, so.
But that's the truth, like, you know what I mean? Like there's a real, like, you know, even when you had in the pot to piss in, even when your mum and dad didn't have money to feed you, they found food.
Yeah, well,
you know,
I never had a problem getting fed.
No, but even clothes say.
Whatever. My problem was eating too much.
Oh, I'm saying. Meet your brother.
Stop, mate. And I think.
I was chatting to the mates yesterday going, I'm going to do a bit of vegetarian today. I'm like, yeah.
Vegetarian, yeah. Stay away from it. I done it for 8 months last year. It's not worth it.
No.
I'm eating that corn stuff. You're trying to convince yourself that it tastes just like chicken.
Lovely.
Fucking rotten. Tasted a bit of chicken and 8 months later I said never again. Oh, stop, yeah. The girlfriend and all jumped on the bandwagon with me. She fucking.
Did she love it, is she?
No, the two of us were lying to ourselves.
You nipping around the chipper around the corner then, getting a batter burger and chips?
Yeah, straight away. Yeah, get everything in there. But anyway, so you decided you wanted to go to college then, which was probably someone who hated school and
completely, yeah. But I became more aspirational because I was around people that were clinicians, doctors, nurses, social workers. My environment then started to kind of become more, I wouldn't say affluent, but it became more kind of.
At any point, did you ever feel out of sorts around people like that? Did you ever feel underqualified? Did you ever feel like you shouldn't be there?
No.
I would have been one of them people. Go.
There's a bit of that though. There is a bit of that. I'm not going to lie to you. But that's imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
everybody gets that. I get that. I get that every time I walk through the gates of Trinity College.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I bet you the security remember me. I hope they don't remember I used to rob bikes in this place. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd be like shitting like going in there, like, but like, you know what? Like, everyone gets imposter syndrome. Even if you're the national clinical director for the HSC in this country, or you know, you're stacking shelves in Tesco's. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? We all get imposter syndrome, but it's all about the circumstances they're in, and sometimes you just have to fake it until you make it. You know what I mean? I genuinely believe that. Like, I mean, my first meeting, right, that I went into as a national advisor, you know, with the NHS and all that, right, in London. I was in Camden and Islington NHS Trusts. And I walked in, and I remember going off and spending like 200 quid on a blazer and a short and a pocket square, so I fit in with everybody.
Right? Put your British accent on?
No, I didn't. I just kind of enunciated. It kind of sounded like I was from Dublin. It sounded like I was D4, you know. Oh my god, get a pint of Heineken.
That's how you do this, man. You have to, don't you?
But like, you know, you don't have to. But
well, you don't, yeah.
But the problem you have is that, like, when you're in those
I wouldn't recommend it.
No, I wouldn't recommend it either. But when you're kind of working in environments where people are, and it's such a kind of rich, kind of ethnic diverse kind of workforce, they don't understand. Oh, really? What's the story?
Yeah, we get that.
You know what I mean? They don't understand the lingo.
I do get that, and I'm kind of torn between the whole fact that I don't think anybody should ever have to dilute themselves.
No.
For anyone, and then at the same time you're like, right, well, these are different people with different backgrounds.
But then how do we become inclusive?
You have, that as well, and then you have to, you have to be able to bend a little bit.
Absolutely, and like I remember, like, kind of going into the meeting, and like I was wearing like this fucking tweed top, tweed blazer, tweed pocket square, chinos, deck shoes. I look like I'm on the fucking yacht. Come here, if I wish. What sweat? I was sweating through the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
Shit, don't ask me a question. Don't ask me a question. And they're like, "What do you think, Mick?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think that's."
Do you remember the question?
Yeah, it was about kind of they were asking about the impact of lived experience practitioners in an inpatient unit. So having people that had mental health issues or alcohol issues or addiction issues, massive. Slowly getting it.
For lived experience.
Mental health peer support workers do exist in Ireland. In fact, there's a postgraduate certificate people can do in DCU.
I don't think something I'd be interested in, to be honest with you, Mick.
Come here, do it. Martha Griffin runs a brilliant course in DCU. Right. I'll give you her details after, man. Quality. But I remember sitting there going, Jesus, shit myself. Because the imposter syndrome hits me. But then after a while, and it's almost like familiarity then, you become comfortable, you become cocky. You're able to kind of, well, not cocky, but you become confident enough to ask difficult questions or to put your point across. Whereas I think maybe the first 5 or 6 meetings with different NHS trusts or different professionals that I was going to, I had a notebook I was writing in. I wasn't writing on. I wasn't writing on.
Just no one look at me.
Yeah, I was literally, no joke, I was scribbling. I bought a fancy notebook from Smithson's on Bond Street.
Fuck's sake, cost you more money to go to them.
I think the notebook cost me like 70 fucking quid, right? Sake. So I was like this, and I had this pen, and I was like, yeah. I was scribbling in the notebook. And I didn't even know what I was doing because I was so intimidated by being surrounded by some of the brightest, most, and not only that, but like some of the biggest and most professional clinicians in the UK.
Yeah, well.
And there's me, I'm from the flats. Like, how the fuck did I end up here?
How did you end up here? So you come back, so you decided to go to college. What is your chasing in college?
So I did the Trinity Access course.
Yeah.
I applied to it because I remember watching some YouTube videos around Lynn Rowan and Gary Gannon, and how they ended up in college, and you know, not coming from non-traditional you know, education routes, and all I had was a junior cert, and went for the interview. Didn't think it went well. Got it. Did the access course. Was hoping to get into social work. Didn't get into social work. Okay. Got accepted into philosophy.
Philosophy, nice.
Stop.
Nice, yeah.
It was brilliant.
Is that sarcasm?
No, you know, it was brilliant. No, it wasn't sarcasm. It was just beyond me. I'll be honest with you. Like, I loved it. Yeah. But it was so. It was unreal. Like, I was surrounded by so many unbelievably intelligent people, and I was learning about like there was a fella years ago called Parmenides who wrote a poem, and the poem doesn't exist anymore. But other people like Plutarch, Herodotus, Pluto, they wrote about the poem and they've kind of quoted it in certain parts. So some sections of the poem exist, and you have to kind of give your opinion on what other bits of the poem might be, or what you think it's about. And I'm like, I haven't a clue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, or I remember
what do you think you said you hadn't a clue? Do you think you were afraid to open up a little bit there, or?
No, I just thought maybe he was a bit kind of beyond me, I think.
Really?
Not that I didn't have a clue, I just thought...
That imposter syndrome again, maybe?
Perhaps, yeah, good show. Good show.
I'm just thinking, because everyone will read stuff like that, philosophical stuff like from Socrates and Plato and stuff like that, and you'll interpret it in your own way, from your own perspectives, and everyone has limited perspectives.
Yeah.
And that's because the perspectives we have are gained through life experiences and everything else that we go through, so we all live our own lives, so when someone has asked that question, what do you think of that poem, you're going to get a very different, more like in-depth creative answer probably every different person you ask, you know that way, and they'll see it and hear it different ways. And I was thinking, that's what I was thinking, did you have something you wanted to say and you just didn't?
I don't know, probably, you know, I'm not really that creative at times, you know what I mean, when it comes to stuff like that. And I think philosophy is very much kind of looking at a 360 degree perception on everything.
Yeah.
You know, everything. You know, it's challenging, it's reflecting, it's, you know, you're kind of why, how, when, you know.
I'm very like that now with me young life. It can be a bit, my brain can get sore from just thinking and challenging myself sometimes, you know what I mean? And like my girlfriend and even a fella, the guy I train with, one of my best mates is Jay, he's like, you ever give yourself a blame rest, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're constantly thinking of different things and challenging yourself and stuff, like but it's for me, it's just part of my makeup. It's not something I can just switch off, you know. And I think it's part of why I go through. I don't know if I want to say this correctly, but I'd say I go through depression intermittently. It comes and goes with me.
But we all do.
Yeah. So I mean, it comes and goes with me, and I think that's part of the reason why I just get caught up thinking so fucking much.
Do you think that's depression, or do you think it's just sometimes your bad days?
Well, when I only know it's depression when it lasts longer than a few days. Like, you know what I mean? You can have days where you just have depressive symptoms, you know, and that's because, well, I decided to stay in bed today and fucking not get dressed. You know what I mean? Whereas that could have been a big change around from the smallest, slightest fucking action taken in the morning with getting a shower and getting up and getting out. You know, that can be prevented. But depression itself, like, when things just spiral out of control for me. You know what I mean? It just gets way too out of hand and you just lose track of time and fucking everything else.
Yeah, it's horrible.
So I mean, philosophy. Go ahead. What happened?
Yeah, so I was doing philosophy. Really enjoyed it. Really did enjoy it. I was doing well now. You know, I was passing all the little tests and stuff that I was doing, all the quizzes and everything else, and but I still wanted to be a social worker. And then in January I put an
What line of social work did you want to do?
Child protection or mental health.
Kids.
Yeah, or mental health. Yeah.
Or mental health.
Yeah.
No, I was just asking you.
Yeah.
Drugs and that and not come into it, no?
Nah, too close to home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Too close to home, you know what I mean?
So these two are close to your heart though?
Yeah. And the reason why I say it's too...
Yeah.
The reason why I say it's too close to home is because, like, had a brother that, you know, sadly, tragically passed away from a heroin overdose in a homeless hostel in town there 3 years ago. You know, I loads of family, like, you know, either passed away either through drug related deaths or you know, drug related illnesses. Do you know what I mean? So
problem is it's getting worse, Mick, you know.
Completely, yeah. But the thing is though, we need to have a public health approach to how we deal with the drug crisis and you know,
drugs.
Completely, yeah. But like you look at the fact that we passed the legislation there a couple of years ago, on drug consumption rooms.
Yeah.
You know, for people that can, you know, go and safely inject in front of it.
I've seen that. Yeah. Has it been successful?
It hasn't even been.
I mean, in other countries,
massively, yeah. Like Portugal.
Portugal has,
yeah, Portugal's been unbelievable, but We don't even have those, even though the legislation.
Are you still on the fence about it, or what?
The legislation exists, but we don't have the facilities to meet the immediate needs of would-be drug users or any drug user in the country. Like there should be, because it saves lives. This is the thing, it saves lives. And also it helps address and gives a route out of drug use and criminality. You know what I mean?
It's a cure, right? But what is the prevention in that type of field? I mean, how do you stop it from getting them?
You know what?
I know that's $1 million question.
100%. If I had the answer, I wouldn't be sitting here.
Exactly. It's something that it's close to home for me as well. I've openly admitted about my drug abuse in the past, and I used to sell fucking drugs.
Yeah.
Something I'm not proud of, and something I fell into that I felt like it was a path that was made out for me because where I was from.
But that's the thing. Let's be honest, where we're from. We're a pound a penny.
So it was just something that I kind of fell into and sort of gravitated towards, because again we talk about you get a product of your environment, and it's just, I look at it now from, like we said, hindsight 2020, and it's like looking back on things, and it's just I despise it. Yeah. I despise it. I despise the dealing side of it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I see what it does to families. Seeing what it does to single mothers who have kids and are addicted, you know what I mean? And it's not nice, you know what I mean? No. But these people don't care, because all they cared about was getting that new fucking Montclair jacket or that kind of the goose. And how, this is what I'm saying about prevention rather than, stop it there, you know.
But the only way we can do real prevention is by having a multidisciplinary team approach. Yeah. That means health services, that means the guards, that means the youth services working together to provide real services that meet the immediate needs of the community. Because the reason why people get sucked into selling drugs is because they haven't got the money, or they haven't got a lot, or they're looking for a bit of identity, they're looking to be included, they're looking for that kind of family that they don't have. We've loads of mates that would have done the same thing as you. And even family members. Yeah. And they did it because they were accepted. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And they were part of the boys, the lads. That's do you know what I mean? And we need to kind of be proactive and kind of showing young men in Dublin, in inner city Dublin especially, and women, that there are other options for them. Yeah. And
I think again it comes down to values, Mick. I think it comes down to chasing the wrong things in life. You think you want these things?
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right. I think your background explains your behaviour. It doesn't excuse it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And just because you're from a fucking shit area doesn't mean you can be a shithead. Yeah. I think you know what I mean? It's true though, isn't it? Yeah. I'm from Ballymun and I'm from Dublin. Yeah. No, that doesn't count. I know loads of people Ballymun, Finglas, Thomas Barn, do you know what I mean? Carbra, everywhere. In our city, Sheriff, Ballybuck.
We embed it into our identity,
as if we have to
subconsciously.
That we have to be angry, that we have to be this, I always call it silverbacking. I don't know what you call it, but do you ever see it when they're walking around, just a silver,
silverbacking.
You fucking look at it. You know what I mean? It's just,
I know, blatant hostility.
Yeah, I went to the shops this morning to buy a box of Weetabix. Yeah. Two young ones and all that. I would have went to school with their brothers. And I was like, sorry lads. What you say?
Yeah.
I was like,
where do you live now?
I'm living in Clontarf.
Yeah. Are you getting that in Clontarf?
No, it's all. I got that in Crumlin this morning. No, if I was in Clontarf, I would have got a strongly worded email or a solicitor's letter.
Solicitor's letter, through the letterbox. Or an email, 100%. Fucking hell. What did you say? But look, I mean, that's everywhere, and it's unfortunate, but the part of me, it's like, again, another one of those things, catch-22, because you wouldn't change anything to grown up in the flats.
I fucking love it.
You know what I mean?
I loved it.
I wouldn't change anything.
There was a
at the same time, something needs to fucking change. You know what I mean? Because
opportunity, that's what needs to change.
Well, there you go.
Opportunity. I think people
needs to start in the schools though. From a young age. I don't remember anyone even talking about fucking.
But I think it should be beyond the schools. I think it should be parents.
Parents it starts at home. I mean, it will start at home. And this is the unfortunate thing about inner city. I mean, the single mother rate is very big. You know what I mean? And mothers can only do so much by themselves. And same with single fathers, any single parent. You know, I'm a strong believer in I believe that two parents should raise a child. It takes two parents to make a child, and I think two of them should raise a child. Yeah. And play that part. I don't believe being a parent is just a title. I believe it's a full-time role. Yeah. And you need to live up to it. Yeah. So it's just the inner city has like a culture of get a girl pregnant, do a run out, take the kid in the weekends, wherever. That's if you're not throwing the kid to your man and going out on a session. Yeah. Which then another woman then
with the lads.
Not learning the principles they need to be learning from a father perspective either. You know what I mean? And especially young boys is what I'm talking about.
And is it still continuing? Is it still happening? Do you think, so, or do you think it's changing? Given how
I think it's worse than ever. I think it's grown. Yeah, I think the single mother rate has grown. Now I don't have the numbers offhand, but I'd say it is, Mick. I'd say.
I know, because like, for me, like you know, being in Trinity and all that, like I always kind of get caught. I would always come out with some, mad kind of sweeping statement, and have you got the evidence base for that?
Yeah, really.
And I'm like,
well, the evidence. I'm
like, you weren't there. You weren't there.
Yeah, I'm just going off what I'm saying in the area.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm going
off. For me, growing up where I'm from, there was loads of single mums, loads. But I do think the best way to kind of address that isn't to kind of focus on single mums or two-parent families.
Learning it in the home, and
completely. And I think that's where
so many hours in a day.
Completely, but I do think that's where kind of the community or community workers or social workers or like health clinics come into play here, because there needs to be a joined up approach to supporting people in our community, and that's the big thing. I think that's how we address those issues, because it's great in an ideal world, mum and dad, brilliant. Fantastic, it is. But the reality is they're going to be single mums, there's going to be single dads. So how can we equip them with the life skills they need to provide and to kind of instill the values that kids need in the world that we live in today? And a lot of the time it's life skills that me and you take for granted. Getting up in the morning, being consistent, timekeeping. I'm really bad at that.
And there was times that I couldn't get out of bed, you know what I mean? So I am grateful for everything that I do nowadays, you know what I mean? And I do live a life that's, I'm very focused and zoned in on the simple things. I'm really present nowadays. It's just, I think it's just something I've learned after going through fucking so much mental battles and I don't know how many fucking breakdowns I've had. I don't know how many times I've wanted to kill myself. You know what I mean? So I'm at a point now where
and how are you feeling now, alright?
I'm good now, mate. But like I said, I've said it before openly on podcasts. Like I could go great. I could be on top of the world for fucking 6 months straight. And on a random day, I could be thinking of a way to kill myself. You know, that way, just out of nowhere. I've wanted to get assessed for that, and
you do know that's normal, by the way.
It is normal. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's dark, like
It's normal.
Well, hopefully.
How do you feel?
Now I feel good.
But in general, how do you feel?
Good, yeah.
Is there anything wrong with how you feel?
Not at the moment.
No, because feelings are normal.
Feelings are normal. Yeah.
Every feeling is normal because it's something that you experience. So you can't turn around and go, Jesus, I'm abnormal, or that's wrong. It's not wrong.
Wrong is the key word, isn't it?
It's not wrong.
Because everyone says, what's wrong with you?
Nothing wrong with you. Do you know what I say? What happened to you?
Right, yeah.
That's what I say. What happened to you? That's the best. Completely. What's up? What's the story?
Words,
completely. And you switch it.
Things like that can
massively.
Make a difference, yeah.
But I will say to anyone, like even yourself, Tomo, or anyone listening or watching this, there's nothing wrong with you. If you're feeling depressed, angry, suicidal, you're cutting yourself, you're using drugs, you're drinking heavily, there's nothing wrong with you. There's obviously a trauma that needs to be addressed, or there's obviously an underlying issue that needs to be addressed.
I don't see it as something wrong.
But it's not wrong, because you're doing your best to cope in a world that sometimes doesn't help.
Yeah, well I heard that one. I was only talking about that with my girlfriend recently, and I asked her, do you believe everyone does or is doing the best that they can? And she said, and I would have said as well now, I would have said recently, not too long ago, I would have said no, I do believe sometimes that we can do better. I do believe that this person can do better. I do believe that person can do better. But then I heard someone, I can't remember what I heard, but I heard someone say that they had the same conversation with their husband or wife, and the response was, I don't know if everyone is doing the best that they can, but all I do know is my life is easier when I believe that they are.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you believe everyone is doing their best with what they have at this given time, the tools, the mood, how their life is, the circumstances they're in, the situations they're in, and even if that, what you might see as not up to scratch in whatever they're doing, or the standard of how they're living, or their behaviours are not probably appropriate, but they're doing the best they can at this time, at this moment in time. And anyway, now I don't know, what do you think of that?
I'd have to agree with that, yeah. Genuinely, yeah. I think, like, you know, who are we to judge?
True.
You know, I would have worked in homeless services for a long time, and you know, service users or clients coming in, and they'd be like, oh, fucking that fucking community welfare officer fucking stop me, fucking, he's a fucking up there and fucking put his nose on a fucking pox bottle. And I'd be like, no, you know, you can't use that on that. Fuck you fat ginger prick. Right. But the thing, the way I look at that, right, and I remember, like, kind of, I would take it with a pinch of salt. Yeah. But there were staff members that would have barred someone.
See, they lead with their emotions.
Completely, but also how they speak for where they're from and where they're living and what they're experiencing is perfectly normal. Yeah, that's normal. That's a normal response to what they're experiencing. And in an environment they're from, that's a normal response. Yeah. Now, it might not go down well in the leafy suburbs of Dublin, but in the inner city, let's be honest, language is a big part of how we communicate. Yeah. You know what I mean? Definitely.
No, I do understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I'm thinking, like, in general, there is right and wrong ways of doing things.
But I think
maybe
I think absolutely. I think when you come into, like, kind of when it's morality and stuff like that, absolutely. You know. But I'm on about kind of.
It's like, yeah, but I mean, like, some people can see that as maybe disrespectful. Like, I'm walking my bollocks off here, and I don't want to be spoken to like that. You know what I mean? I'm not having a rough day, because everyone's going through fucking something, man.
Absolutely. But then I think if you're having a rough day and you're working with people who are vulnerable,
probably shouldn't be there.
Shouldn't be there if you're having a rough day. Because I would always say, when I used to kind of work with, and I used to manage teams and stuff, and I would always ask in the team meetings before we'd start a shift, how's everyone doing today? Yeah. I'm like, grand, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah. And I go, right, but if anyone is having a rough day, come and speak to me and you can have the day off.
Yeah, because you'd rather them have the day off.
Absolutely, because it would create more problems than it would cause.
Yeah, I understand. That's a nice approach. Yeah. So where are you at now, Mick? What's going on with you now? Well, how are you now? You asked me. So
I'm deadly. Yeah, like, yeah, I'm good.
Do you ever have any moments? And
of course I do. We're all human beings. It's an emotion, like how we are as people. You know, it's always like and you know what? I'm not going to be all Ronan Keating. But life is a bit of a roller coaster, 100%. And you just have to ride it. But like it's true.
True, yeah.
You know, we're gonna have our ups, we're gonna have our downs. But the best thing about it is my ups outweigh the downs.
Good. And for a long time, I'm sure that wasn't the case.
No, it was like fucking. I was down here, and then I'd have one really good day. Well, I thought it was a good day, but it wasn't really. It was just mania because I was bipolar going through. I was quite manic.
And that's it. Yeah, you have that sort of manic depression is what it used to be called. Bipolar syndrome now. I mean.
When I was going through a period of mania, it was.
Have you dealt with it? Like,
I'm on medication for it.
That's just something. Once you're diagnosed with that, it's like that's just for life, is it?
Pretty much,
yeah. I'm pretty sure if I got assessed, I might be the same thing. I think you
can't lose it. Like, it's not like kind of, you know.
Yeah, it's not like there's no
losing your
it's just
leave card.
But I mean, for psychological things, like, I mean, let's say for like things like we can manifest panic attacks, which is I used to have panic attacks on a regular basis, and I don't have them anymore. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know if you could treat something like that.
You can,
It's just gone for good.
But like for me, a lot of it was like, Tomo, it's all about talking about how I felt.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was exploring.
Coming from the inner city, coming from a rough area.
Don't talk to me.
No, but this is what I'm saying. When did you start? Like what?
I started after a failed suicide attempt.
Right.
Where I was in a bad way. And if I'm being honest with you, I was in a park in London and I was hanging by my neck and I didn't want to die, but there's nothing I could do about it. And I woke up in the hospital, in Charing Cross Hospital.
So
I severed the artery in my neck. I spent weeks in a cardiovascular ward in Charing Cross Hospital in London.
Okay.
And I didn't want to die.
You realised that as you were hanging?
Yeah.
How did you get down?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
Cops told me a fellow was out walking his dog and found me, called the cops, and ambulance crew came up, and I think the fella, I don't know, didn't really go with the details. I imagine the fella walking his dog probably saw my big fat ginger arse and thought, fuck, held on to me or tried to hold on to me.
Did you up a little bit?
Think so, yeah.
Think so. Release the tension there in the neck.
Yeah.
Jesus, mate, yeah.
Yeah.
And in that sudden moment, that action, you went from, I don't want to be here anymore, to, fuck.
I didn't want to die, yeah.
Maybe I don't want this. So, I mean, anyone who's out there who's going through on it like that, I mean...
What I'll say is this. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah, very true.
And I struggled so much for so long in not being able to address the trauma that I experienced. Because I was afraid of what people would think. I was worried about not being believed again. And it nearly killed me. And what I'll say is, like, your life is so precious, it's so valuable. There's only one of you.
Very true.
And, you know, for a long time I didn't really understand that or accept that. I thought it was worthless and I thought it wasn't worth anything. But after years of being in and out of hospital and going through like talking therapies and everything else, it really did. It enabled me to find stability with my mental health. It really did, you know, that talking, because, you know, the medication only solves one particular area.
Yeah.
It's having the ability to talk about how you feel, but more importantly, taking the personal responsibility to recognise when you're feeling down, when you're feeling depressed, when you're feeling suicidal, when you feel like you're going to self-harm, relapse, use drugs, go and ring your man, go, hey, have you got a bag? You know, it's all about kind of ringing people that when you're in those positions to go, I need a bit of help here. It's about having that personal responsibility, you know, because that's for me, out of everything that I've done in my life, having that personal responsibility to go, I need to ring someone. Whether it's my GP, my doctor, my best mate.
How important is that individual responsibility in life?
Massive. I think above all, that is the cornerstone of anything you want to do in life, because nothing's going to get handed to you.
So for you, that was your realisation, was when you started to take responsibility for your own shit.
Massively, yeah.
It was when you started to probably become that little bit more open, that little bit more stable.
Completely, yeah. Because like, for me, I'd be like...
Beforehand, were you blaming others?
Massively. Blaming the John's ambulance, blaming the perpetrator, blaming me ma, blaming me dad, blaming everybody.
That just wasn't helping.
Everyone. I was blaming everybody but myself. Because I was looking constantly for excuses. Yeah, I wasn't looking at myself. Because I didn't want to acknowledge what happened to me. I didn't want to go...
Well, I mean, you weren't at fault for that at all. And this is the problem with fault and responsibility. They're two different things. You may not be, for anyone listening in, wherever it is that we all go through some sort of trauma in childhood, and some a little bit more severe than others, and I think yours would be on one of the most severe ends that from what we have heard. And I think no matter what has happened to you, when you're a child, it may not have been your fault, but as an adult, it's your responsibility to fix it.
Yeah.
That's just part of life. That's probably one of the... And some people just they don't want to take responsibility for it because they believe that whoever was at fault also holds the responsibility. But this is your life.
Yeah. You
need to get it right. You know what I mean? Like you said, we've only got one shot at it. And I think that's a good point to touch on. Like, I think blaming and not taking responsibility is definitely just causes more harm. It delays the healing process, I believe.
Yeah. Also stops you from making meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
And developing those relationships to, you know, like I would have blamed everybody, you know, if it didn't work out or everything. It was their fault.
Yeah.
But it was my fault because I wasn't dealing with the trauma that I experienced as a child.
Right.
And it was not the only way I could do that was through talking therapy, through sitting down with psychiatrists, my counsellors.
Which relationships do you mean? Romantic relationships?
Romantic relationships, friendships, you name it, yeah.
How much of an impact did, I'm sure you've been asked this question before and you don't have to go into it if you don't want to, but the abuse?
No, I will not.
I don't know if you're serious.
No.
I'm sure it's a hard question to answer, but the abuse, how much of an impact did it have on your romantic relationship?
Yeah, massive, yeah. Like, yeah, massive, yeah.
It's very confusing, very young age. Did you ever question sexuality or anything?
Not so much of that, no, because I always, you know...
You knew what you liked?
Boards all the way, I mean, like...
You know what you liked?
Yeah, like...
But I'm sure that can fuck with your head as well.
Ah, completely, like, I remember, like, kind of, you know, dating and being with girls and, you know, long-term relationships and, you know, the PTSD that was undiagnosed, I'd be having, like, night terrors.
Yeah.
So I'd be in bed, and then I go, ah! Like, you know, middle of the night, and she's next to me, she's like, what the fuck? And there's only so much you can take of that, especially if you're dating someone.
Would you open up about why?
No,
at that point?
no. We used to push.
Was there a reoccurring dream or anything?
Yeah, there was, yeah.
Did it involve him?
Yeah.
And are those gone?
Sorry?
Are those dreams gone?
Yeah, somewhat, yeah. I get the odd kind of, maybe a jump or, you know, like I was, you know, yeah, like dating someone at the moment, and you know, there's been times where like she's touched me and like flinch. Alright.
Certain areas or
just
touch.
Yeah. I'll be asleep. Yeah, and I just like flinch. Alright, jump. Alright. Yeah.
So the guard is still slightly up, unbeknown to yourself.
Sometimes. I think you know what, when you've experienced, and I think to be fair again, I think anyone from the inner city, we all have that hypervigilance thing. We're always looking. We're always aware. We're always kind of like, there's almost like as if if we could move our heads 360 degrees while we could walk, we would, wouldn't we? We'd be like,
what are you looking at?
Yeah, I think, but just even just to scope out the area.
What are you looking at?
Make sure there's no boundaries. Yeah, you'd be just walking around like a big spinny head.
Stuff. Well, look, Mick, all I can say is, like, for a man who's gone through some of the bleeding things you have, like, the fact that you're still standing here today is incredible, mate. It's a success story in itself, and I know nowadays with social media, it's all success equals financial wealth and materialistic fucking possessions and everything. Everybody's a CEO and this, that, and the other. But for me, hearing stories like that you're still standing here able to tell this story and inspire others and tell people that no matter how bad it gets, you still have that fucking fight left and you don't give up. And that's the message that I get when I hear your type of story, and that's the type of success that I get inspired by. So I just want to say thanks very much for that. And I know I mentioned, and I asked you about something that isn't neither of our fields, about how do you prevent the drug abuse from happening rather than the cure, but how do we prevent now going forward as a nation, as communities, as families? How do we prevent child abuse? How do we stop that from happening? Because once it happens, the damage is done, and unfortunately, I always say, nobody's a paedophile till they're caught. Do you know what I mean? They don't get the title until they're actually out there, because nobody knows who they are.
No.
They could be sitting right with us. They could be, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't necessarily be an expert on child protection or, you know, how do we prevent kids from being abused. But I think one of the best ways of kind of ensuring that children are protected. It's being mindful of safeguarding. It's about having those difficult conversations with your kids or youth groups that you're looking after about what is appropriate, what is inappropriate, you know, and if you feel uncomfortable or if you want to talk with you, if there's anything wrong, that you do come and speak to us, you know, and that goes right down from like community leader, youth worker, mother, father, you know, it's so important that you know, kids are believed, that they're not, you know, pushed aside, that they're not ignored, because when I came forward, nobody believed me, nobody.
That can be damaging as well, you know.
Completely, yeah. Like you know, for a number of years in the UK, I was in and out of psychiatric hospitals, getting, you know, locked in a room 3 times smaller than this, you know, for most of the day, you know, getting medicated and, you know, against my will, because I didn't want to talk. I was afraid to.
That was the alternative.
Yeah.
Well, look, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, all.
And I'm sure we'll catch up again. We'll keep in touch.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And for anyone who is listening in, who might want to find you anywhere, or the work that you're doing, or other work that you're doing, is where can they find you?
On Twitter, Mick Finnegan, and Instagram, Mick Finnegan. Yeah.
That's it. Plain and simple. Right.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, mate. Let's stop it there. Thanks very much, pal.
Was that right?
Yeah, brilliant.
You sure?
Very open, very fucking honest. Love it. Yeah, that's the type of interview as well. The talks